Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef Justice Putnam. Netrootsradio.com.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théères, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est long, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
Evan Thomas, draw parallels, if you will, for us between Richard Nixon's final days and Donald Trump's. There is, that I can think of, no figure in American history whose final days were spent in a Nixonian state, inside the White House, in a bunker, more so than Donald Trump. Of course, even, Nixon had Kissinger to force him to get down on his knees and pray with him, making Kissinger extraordinarily uncomfortable. Had Al Haig still running around trying to hold the ship together. Still had people around him. With Donald Trump, you had a man after the riots abandoned by his closest allies on the Hill, the Senate Majority Leader. Banned by Twitter, banned by Facebook. This was the way he communicated to the outside world. Impeached for a second time. And for the most part, sitting alone inside the White House for the last few weeks with just a few final holdovers.
Well, they said that Nixon was kind of half mad at the end. But he had a moment of insight that I don't expect from Donald Trump. When Nixon left the White House, he gave a talk and he said, if you hate your enemies, it will destroy you. It was a little bit late for Richard Nixon to have this insight, because hating his enemies did destroy him. But at least he did it. At least he said that. And he said it as advice to his successors. I don't expect a moment of self-reflection like that in Donald Trump. We'll see, but I wouldn't hold your breath. Nixon was a horribly flawed person, but he did believe in the system in his own way, and he acceded to the inevitability of his own impeachment and resigned. Trump lives in a different place. Trump is in another world, not Nixon's world, just further out there.
Yeah, can we, John Heilman, before we go to break, we look at the United States Capitol, absolutely beautiful imagery. And I must say last night, and maybe it's because of the chaos that surrounded it 2.5 weeks ago, it was absolutely gorgeous last night, lit up during the ceremony, the COVID ceremony. But let's talk about what's going to go on inside of that Capitol in the coming weeks. Mitch McConnell yesterday came out and delivered a blistering critique of Donald Trump. Said that the rioters were lied to, that Donald Trump supporters have been lied to about the election, and that the responsibility rests with the President of the United States. Tell us what is going on there. It's not that Mitch McConnell is incapable of just saying something because it's the right thing, but many Washington observers aren't sure that they've actually ever seen him do that while in Washington, D.C. So what's the story behind the story?
Well, Joe, I think, we saw last week, of course, McConnell having the extraordinary thing of kind of letting, without dispute, not disputing in any way news reports, which many believe were sort of direct leaks, but he certainly was offered the opportunity to say they were untrue. These stories in the New York Times and elsewhere that he believed that Trump had committed impeachable offenses, that he was happy he was being impeached, that he thought that this was the way to purge Trump from the Republican Party. And then we now come to this week. In between, we had McConnell not doing a snap Senate trial after Trump was impeached. And a lot of people speculated about whether that was a sign that maybe McConnell was trying to have it both ways, criticize Trump on background in big newspapers, but then not try to drive him out of public life by convicting him. Didn't have the trial over the weekend, which he could have done, which is what a lot of House Democrats and a lot of Senate Democrats wanted. Instead, he elected to wait and have this trial in this early part of Joe Biden's term. It's my view, based on my reporting and analysis, that McConnell knew full well that in the Senate, in order to get those 17 Republicans that he needs, those votes to convict Donald Trump, that doing a snap trial in the Senate would have offended their sense of due process, and that he knew that by waiting, the case against Trump would only grow more powerful, that more evidence would come out, we would see more video, the complicity of Trump as rioters, as insurrectionists testified to the fact that they had come to the Capitol in their minds on Donald Trump's orders, on Donald Trump's instructions, that would make a case more powerful against Trump, and that waiting would make it easier to convict him. And I think yesterday you saw McConnell take the next step. He effectively said yesterday that he, as you said, he came out and basically said that Donald Trump was to blame for what happened in the Capitol. He then basically said, without saying these words, that he had in fact done what the article of impeachment says he did, incited an insurrection. And I think that was the clearest tip of the hand that McConnell intends to vote to convict Donald Trump, that he is not only opening the door but encouraging other Republicans to do so.
It is Wednesday, the 20th of January of 2021, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner the English Bulldog is our snoozing sous chef, and our daily special is Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. It is Inauguration Day. We have rid ourselves of that meddlesome, troublesome... we're not going to use the P word for him ever. Ever. We pretty much avoided it for the last 4 years here at NetRiz Radio. We opened up our style manual and it said the P word shall not be applied to Donald Trump. And so we have certainly avoided it for the most part. And I have to say that, by turns, the 4 years previous seemed very, very long and also quite short. It's over now. He's gone. He's finally gone. Sort of gone. He did say he will return in some form, and I was wondering what you mean by that. Are you one of those shapeshifters? What kind of form are you talking about? Oh my gosh. Yeah, they want to have their own party now. Yeah, a viable party to supplant the Republican Party, I think, is what will happen. They want to call themselves the Patriot. The Patriot Party. The Patriot Party. Please, it's acting patriot, whatever you guys do. Oh, the Patriot Party. They just appropriate everything. Everything. And they have no idea what it means. But that's how we got to where we are. And I hope that we become more civic-minded. What happened on January 6th, all kidding aside now, I think really opened up a lot of eyes. There are some people that said, this isn't fun and games. This is getting damn real. So maybe there will be a bit of chagrin. Let's hope so. Already, though, the GOP is out whining about a balanced budget. Deficit spending is the most evil thing in the world. Yeah, well, give us back the tax cuts you gave the billionaires, okay? And the trillionaires. Give those back, and maybe we'll talk. All right? I love the propaganda posters already of Joe Biden wearing a Communist Party hat in a one of those weird. It's not Soviet realism. It's what the propaganda type of artwork in China. I don't think that's called Chinese realism, but the communist propaganda poster type of artwork, and Joe's in a line with other, communists down through history. Yeah, Engels, Marx. How many people actually know what Engels looks like? Well, he's got a beard. Yeah. Anyway, Joe's right there, and already he's a socialist. It's just anybody who calls Joe a socialist has no idea what socialism is, because I think Che Guevara would probably kick somebody's ass if they called Joe a commie. Not because it's, Che Guevara would be upset that someone called someone else a commie, but that Joe is not a commie. Those are fighting words to commies. All right? You're insulting commies. Stop it. So we have to fight this massive ignorance that we have here in America. And how did we become so ignorant of our political structure and system? Well, a lack of civics. Just like Nikki Haley said and others. They stopped teaching physics. Well, you know who they were. Yeah. Right-wing conservative Republicans across the country said, if people know too much about America, we'll never get voted in again. And that's why they gerrymander. And they're right out right now. In Texas, there's a Texas Republican lady who just gave the store away. We don't gerrymander. We'll never get voted in again, is what her direct quote is. And it's true. They can't win unless they cheat. And even then, they're not able to win anymore. Oh boy, were they mad. So mad, they stormed the Capitol of the United States because, we cheated. We were guaranteed a win if we cheated. And how you must have cheated if you were able to beat our cheat. Well, no, we didn't cheat. We just got so pissed off after the last 4 years that we came out in greater numbers than the 70-some million that we always hear about. The New York Times is interviewing, so many sad maggots right now in some diner somewhere. Well, yeah, how about interviewing the janitorial staff at the Capitol as they're sitting in the barber shop about what it was like to have their lives threatened by a white supremacist mob? Why doesn't the New York Times interview those people? Yeah. And they continue to call the Democratic Party the Democrat. New York Times, you're being New York Times, all right? Come on now. We're in a new era. But they're going to kick Joe. I expect white evangelicals to complain the most now. Because what did Joe do before, even coming to the dais this morning here? And, to become inaugurated, he went to Mass. He went to church. He does that every morning. And I expect those white evangelicals who propped up Trump for the last 4+ years to complain loudly that Joe goes to church too much. Yep. Deficit spending is the most evil thing in the world when Democratic members of the world are in office. And, acting secretaries. I'm sure the GOP is going to make that illegal now, while at the same time not even letting any of Joe's nominations come to a vote. Josh Hawley said, hey, I'm not having some brown guy run the DHS. Are you kidding me? Wait until Hawley sees some of those other nominations. I think he's going to be a little shocked because he's a Nazi. And he's suffering his embrace of Nazism. Another resort found out that he was trying to rent them for what was called a fun-filled weekend. Yeah, a fun-filled weekend of trying to raise money for a Nazi. And the hotel said, no way, you're not coming here. And, of course, the right wing is whining about being canceled. You know what being canceled is? Being ripped from the arms of your parents and never seeing them again. Had to put up with a family photograph of Stephen Miller, his wife, and baby. Oh, we thank Trump, because if it wasn't for Trump for the last 4 years, we wouldn't have a family of 3. Well, you know what? Stephen Miller and his wife were architects of that family separation policy. Racist. I hope they never experience what it's like to lose their baby. I would not wish that upon them at all. And I don't like the idea that their daughter has to suffer because of their racism, their embrace of Nazism. And yes, I don't care. Oh, yeah, he's supposed to be a Jew. He's Jewish. Well, his rabbi excommunicated him, or the equivalent of such. And he's a Nazi. Let's not quibble about it. And I'm sorry that that baby has to suffer. If they don't want to be separated, I guess that, we can convert the icebox baby gulags to accommodate all 3 of them then. But I hate the idea that the baby has to be incarcerated too. But they do that quite often. I mean, there are jails with babies and moms. So I guess, it's already set up to be able to do so. But they're going to, once they find out what the prison system is like, there's going to be massive prison reform. You know that. Yeah. Okay. Well, looks like the New York Police Department, after beating up a bunch of heads for a Black Lives Matter, I wouldn't call it a protest. It was just honoring Martin Luther King Day. So, looks like the NYPD cracked a bunch of heads and then got out of town to go help protect the inauguration. The NYPD? I don't trust any of them. Have they been vetted by the FBI? And which FBI is vetting them? Rudy's? Rudy's part of the FBI, the rogue FBI office? I don't know if I like the idea of the NYPD hitting it down to D.C. to protect the inauguration. What do you mean by that? I'd like to defund racist cops. If you say that, they go, oh, you're trying to get rid of all our police. I said racist cops. Yeah, you're trying to get rid of all our police. They just show what they are every time. My God. More Oath Keepers are getting arrested as being the most dangerous aspect of the insurrection, to the point of having materiel and operation tactical strategy to trap our electeds in the tunnels and gas them to death. Oath Keepers. The sheriffs that carry like what I call the Reader's Digest version of the Constitution seems to be lacking in depth. And they carry it around, and they're supposed to be constitutional sheriffs. The most important office in the land. That's what these people believe, okay? And we have some Oath Keeper sheriffs in positions of power as county sheriffs. Avowed Oath Keeper sheriffs. Not one has said anything about what went on January 6th, I will mention here, which is a bit concerning. Do they know what happened? Are they trying to distance themselves? Are they not going to be an Oath Keeper anymore? Can they attest to that? Anyway, we know who they are. I was for a long time concerned about, who you would call around here in Southern Oregon, because, you can't just call the cops about Nazis. But, they do rotate FBI through quite often. So the idea of having an office here out in the Northwest of FBI being always and, full of white supremacists and bigots and white nationalists, since they rotate quite often, that's not necessarily the case then, one would hope. But I think that this FBI got a little angry at a avowed Russian mobster running this country for the last 4 years. There were some that liked it, of course, but there were many who were appalled. The investigations into Trump before he became president was not because of some hate of Trump. Well, I don't know. Cops usually hate mobsters. You know, they while they're investigating them, they usually say bad things about them. Except when Trump got into office, he fired all the FBI people that were investigating him, especially if they said bad things about him. Oh, they said bad things about me, they're biased. Well, damn right, they're cops. Why wouldn't they be biased against a crook? Jeez, what world do you live in? The land of mobsters? Yeah. So now he's going back to Florida. Are there going to be enough maggots there to help him feel at home? I think he's going to have to go to somewhere else. Maybe Minsk. Maybe. Because I don't know if he'd like Moscow itself. Minsk he might kind of like, you know. We'll see. What's on the rest of the menu here? On Inauguration Day, right here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy's Bistro Cafe. Well, at the top, you know, Trump does not like being compared to Nixon, but and that's only because Nixon looks like a pretty good guy in comparison. How dare you compare him? On the rest of the menu, 2 of Fox News Channel's top news executives have been fired for correctly calling the Arizona results for Joe Biden. Yeah, remember when they said he went to Joe? They got fired for that. And it was correct. The Secret Service investigated a Saturday Night Live comedian for jokes about Trump and Julius Caesar. Wow. At least they're going after somebody. And the monarch butterfly population moves closer to extinction. Think of that. The monarch butterfly. After the break, we move to the chef's table, where a Thai court sentenced a former civil servant to a record prison term of 43 years and 6 months for insulting the king. And South Africa's trailblazing black food writer, Dorah Sitole, has died of COVID-19. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Of our homepage at netrootsradio.com. To the right of the page is our chat room link, and the chat room is monitored by Kelly Lincoln. Thank you, Kelly. To the left of the chat room link, near the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, is the link to our Patreon page. And if you could become a recurring Patreon of Netroots Radio, as many have done so previously, and in great generosity, I might add, thank you. If you could afford an espresso-type coffee drink and send the funds from that to us once a month, we are able to stretch those dollars. We then pay our bills, and that allows us to fly under the radar. Yeah, the radar, and fulfill our civic duty as the founders originally intended so many years ago. We will probably continue with being Resistance Radio, since there seems to be quite a few neo-Nazi white supremacists out there left. But I think we may be into a position to reignite democracy. Yeah, we're going to be a part of that, and let's be part of a new day. And thank you for allowing us to do so. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter, go to @NetrootsRadio. Tom takes care of that. Thank you, Tom. If you would like to follow me on Twitter, and you might as well, and you can find me at Justice Putnam. Well, I post the show notes and links diary on Daily Co's about 10 minutes before showtime. Then I get that show notes and links diary linked up on Twitter and other social media platforms. So go ahead, follow me on Twitter. You can follow the show on Twitter at Cookbook West, and please do pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, and wherever podcasts can be found, even mixed in with Bannon's. All right, let's tuck into this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Inauguration Day on Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. David Bowder of the Associated Press brings us this first offering. Two of Fox News Channel's top news executives involved in the controversial, I don't know why it was controversial, but correct, election night call of Arizona for Democrat Joe Biden. I think it's Democratic. Well, they're out at the network. Bill Salmon, senior vice president and managing editor at Fox's Washington bureau, announced his retirement to staff members on Monday, yesterday, Tuesday, as part of a restructuring of Fox's digital operations. Politics editor Chris Steyerwalt was also let go. Fox's decision to call Arizona for Biden took the network's anchors by surprise and infuriated the White House, which believed the determination was premature. Really? Steyerwalt and Fox's decision desk chief, Arnon Mishkin, were the two most visible people defending the decision on the air amidst heat from Donald Trump and his supporters. Mishkin, who worked the election on a contractual basis, is not a Fox employee. 2 days after the call, Steyerwalt said on the air that Arizona is just doing what we expected it to do, and we may remain serene and pristine. He hasn't been on the air at Fox since the post-election period. Reached yesterday, Tuesday, both Steyerwalt and Salmon declined comment. Fox, in a statement yesterday, Tuesday, said that, quote, as we conclude the 2020 election cycle, Fox News Digital has realigned its business and reporting structure to meet the demands of this new era. Oh, you mean constant degradation of everything that democracy is? And if it's embodied by Joe Biden, then you're going to have to really work hard to bring it down, and that's what you're going to do. And any positivity that would actually give credence to a Joe Biden presidency is, well, I think, what would you call it? What'd you call it again? The demands of this new era? Okay. Nearly 20 people lost their job as part of the restructuring, according to someone familiar with the changes who spoke on condition that no one tell who they are because the person was not allowed to speak on personnel issues. No one at Fox would comment specifically on Steyerwalt, citing the confidentiality of individual personal matters, and he has been with Fox since 2010, 10 years. Fox and the AP, which called Arizona for Biden later on election night, remained alone until ABC, CBS, and NBC all called it for Biden on November 12th, 8 days after the election, and after all the networks had declared Biden the winner overall. Biden won Arizona by almost 11,000 votes out of nearly 3.4 million cast. The call angered many Fox News Channel fans. In its wake, conservative broadcaster Newsmax, which has featured many of the personalities who backed Trump's questioning of the election results, saw a sharp viewership increase. Oh, confirmation bias is so profitable if you're a conservative. Fox ratings have dipped as a result, and the network recently announced lineup changes that most prominently added a new opinion show in the early evening. Oh, Maria Bartiromo. Yeah, she's become a frother, so they're going to give her a primetime show. James Laporta of the Associated Press brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. The U.S. Secret Service opened an investigation into comedian John Mulaney over jokes believed to be made about Donald Trump on Saturday Night Live last year, according to records obtained by the Associated Press. Mullaney, age 38, revealed last month that the Secret Service had investigated the comedian, an SNL alum, for, quote, inappropriate jokes about President Trump, end quote, after he made a joke about Roman dictator Julius Caesar, who was stabbed to death by a group of senators on the Ides of March. The file, obtained by the AP through a Freedom of Information Act request, showed the Bureau contacted NBC but did not interview the comedian for its inquiry, which found no wrongdoing. Really? Another thing that happened under Julius Caesar, he was such a powerful maniac that all the senators grabbed knives and they stabbed him to death. That would be an interesting thing if we brought that back now, Mullaney said to laughter from the audience. The joke was said during Mullaney's opening monologue during the Saturday Night Live broadcast on February 29th of 2020. The Secret Service noted other remarks during the monologue, including, I asked my lawyer if I could make that joke. He said, let me call another lawyer, and that lawyer said yes. I don't dwell on politics, but I dislike the Founding Fathers immensely. I hate when people are like, God has never created such a great group of men than the Founding Fathers. Yeah, the 92 Bulls. That's a perfect metaphor for the United States. When I was a boy, the United States was like Michael Jordan in 1992. Now, the United States is like Michael Jordan now. 2 days after Mullaney's SNL monologue, law enforcement officials contacted Thomas McCarthy, the global chief security officer and senior vice president at NBC Universal, to express the agency's desire to discuss the joke with the comedian's attorneys. The Secret Service file included a report from Breitbart entitled, SNL, John Mullaney jokes that senators should stab Trump like Julius Caesar. The investigation into Mullaney was opened in March and closed in December, 5 days after the comedian revealed the investigation during an interview with Jimmy Kimmel. The Secret Service file notes that Mullaney made no direct threats towards Trump. The person vetting me was very understanding that the joke had nothing to do with Trump because it was an elliptical reference to him, Mullaney said to Kimmel. I didn't say anything about him. In terms of risk assessment, no one who's ever looked at me thought I registered above a 1. He added, I said I've been making jokes about him since 2007, so I've been making fun of him for 13 years, Mullaney said. They said if it's a joke, then I am cleared by the Secret Service. R. Rodriguez of the Associated Press brings us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Smothered Benedict Wednesdays on this inauguration day. The number of western monarch butterflies wintering along the California coast has plummeted precipitously to a record low, putting the orange and black insects closer to extinction. An annual winter count by the Xerces Society recorded fewer than 2,000 butterflies, a massive decline from the tens of thousands tallied in recent years and the millions that clustered in trees from Northern California's Marin County to San Diego County in the South in the 1980s. I should mention that when I lived in Muir Beach, I cannot tell you how many monarch butterflies. They would darken the sky. It was quite something. And there were Mexican salvia plants around everywhere, and they just loved that. You know, I know that they go for milkweed, but they just loved the salvia that was about. It was lovely. Western monarch butterflies head south from the Pacific Northwest to California each winter, returning to the same places and even the same trees where they cluster to keep warm. The monarchs generally arrive in California at the beginning of November and spread across the country once warmer weather arrives in March. On the eastern side of the Rocky Mountains, another monarch population travels from southern Canada and the northeastern United States across thousands of miles to spend the winter in central Mexico. Scientists estimate that the monarch population in the eastern U.S. has fallen about 80% since the mid-1990s, but the drop-off in the western U.S. is even steeper. The Xerces Society, a nonprofit environmental organization that focuses on conservation of invertebrates, recorded about 29,000 butterflies in its annual survey last winter. That was not much different than the tally the winter before, when an all-time low of 27,000 monarchs were counted. But the count this year is dismal. At iconic monarch wintering sites in the city of Pacific Grove, volunteers did not see a single butterfly this winter. Other well-known locations, such as Pismo Beach and the Natural Bridges State Park, only hosted a few hundred butterflies, researchers said. Scientists say the butterflies are at critically low levels in western states because of destruction of their milkweed habitat along their migratory route as housing expands into their territory and the use of pesticides and herbicides increases. Researchers have also noted the effect of climate change. Along with farming, climate change is one of the main drivers of the monarch's threatened extinction, disrupting an annual 3,000-mile migration synced to springtime and the blossoming of wildflowers. Massive wildfires throughout the U.S. The U.S. West last year may have influenced their breeding and migration, researchers said. Monarch butterflies lack state and federal legal protection to keep their habitat from being destroyed or degraded. In December, federal officials declared the monarch butterfly a candidate for threatened or endangered status, but said no action would be taken for several years because the many other species awaiting that designation. And of course, that was the Trump administration, and they didn't care anyway. You know that. The Xerces Society said it will keep pursuing protection for the monarch and work with a wide variety of partners to implement science-based conservation actions urgently needed to help the iconic and beloved western monarch butterfly migration. People can help the colorful insects by planting early blooming flowers and milkweed to fuel migrating monarchs on their paths to other states, the Xerces Society said. Well, that's quite sad, but maybe we can do our small part. Let's do it. And while we're at it, why don't we go to our break? And when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we have curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Clinton Johnston. This week, What Sci-Fi Sky? In The Midnight Sky, producer-director George Clooney plays an astronomer who, in his youth, proposes human colonization of a newly discovered habitable moon around Jupiter. He dedicates his life to that dream, managing, in his zeal, to alienate his lover, inexplicably drawn to this clearly unavailable man, and to blow any chance at a family, which brings us to the start of the movie. Decades later, when a man-made disaster has killed the Earth's surface and survivors are heading off to shelters. Our astronomer is now old and dying of some kidney malfunction, but insists on remaining alone at an Arctic station, one of the last habitable places on Earth for now. His goal, to stay alive while both his body and his planet rot, long enough to warn a returning mission from Jupiter colony to abort their homecoming and go back. Yeah, so it's not a light film. I'll even spoil it a little and tell you that it isn't even like a 2001 or a Contact where an alien ex machina provides salvation, transcendence, or emotional catharsis at the end. It's not that kind of science fiction. But what kind of science fiction is it? Clooney gives The Midnight Sky the quiet, contemplative tone of serious SF, but the movie neither asks nor much less answers any hard or interesting questions. It keeps your attention, yes, but unless I miss something, we're left at the end with nothing more than a survival melodrama. I mean, maybe it lauds the masculine paradigm of, I sacrifice my emotional and physical life so that my descendants may prosper, but while that's there, the movie doesn't push the idea to be a theme. Still, Mark L. Smith has given us a smartly structured screenplay, and that he always maintains just enough mystery to keep you in the story. So what's sci-fi The Midnight Sky? Well, it ain't space opera, it ain't Star Wars. It gets much closer to Arrival, without actually arriving there. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Clinton Johnston. Catch up with us at take2moviereview.com and feed us back on our channel on YouTube.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
For an expectant mother, taking care of her developing baby means taking good care of herself. One way she can do this is by ensuring she gets vaccinated. If a woman is or might be pregnant during flu season, it's especially important to get her annual flu shot, preferably before the end of October. In addition, women should be vaccinated against whooping cough during the 3rd trimester of each pregnancy. Failure to get vaccinated places both mother and baby at increased risk for serious complications of these infections, including hospitalization and even death. If you're pregnant or planning to get pregnant, ask your healthcare provider when you should get your vaccines. Thank you for joining us on A Minute of Health with CDC.
For the most accurate health information, visit cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
This is a message from CDC.
After hurricanes, tornadoes, and floods, standing water and excess moisture help mold grow in your home, garage, and other structures. When you return to a home that has been flooded, know that you're likely to have mold. Mold puts your family's health at risk. If you have mold growing in your home, you should clean it up and fix other water problems, such as leaks in roofs, walls, or plumbing. Keep your children and pets out of affected areas until you've cleaned. Control moisture in your home to prevent mold growth. To remove mold growth from hard surfaces, use commercial products, soap and water, or a bleach solution of no more than 1 cup of household laundry bleach in 1 gallon of water. Follow the manufacturer's instructions. Never mix bleach with ammonia or other household cleaners. It will produce dangerous, toxic fumes. Open windows and doors to provide fresh air.
For more information, visit cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
Hi, I'm Tom Hartman, and since you're listening to netrootsradio.com, show your progressive side and go to the donate button on the bottom of the homepage. It's progressives like you who power Netroots Radio and keep the progressive message beaming everywhere 24 hours a day. Just go to our donate button at the bottom of netrootsradio.com. Thank you for keeping progressive radio at full power.
Ransacking and terrorizing of Congress by violent trumpeters is an outrage, right? Even Republican congressional leaders have rushed to assail the mob invasion, calling it a desecration of America's democratic ideals. For example, the GOP Senate leader, Mitch McConnell, denounced the invading outsiders as thugs, lecturing that self-government, quote, requires a shared commitment to truth and shared respect for the ground rules of our system. But wait, what about the insider mob? The lawmakers who routinely run roughshod over our ideals of equality and justice. So many of the pious members who are now so prissily crying out for decorum and respect for the process openly solicit special interest cash to do favors for the donors, while ignoring the basic needs of workaday people they supposedly represent. Excuse me, Mitch, but for the past 4 years, weren't you Trump's most destructive Machiavellian monkey wrencher in Congress? Yes, you were, relentlessly stomping on truth and rigging legislative ground rules to ram his plutocratic, autocratic agenda into law. You even stoked his depraved narcissism. For weeks after it was clear that Joe Biden had won the presidency, you cynically fed Trump's fantasy that he had won, helping spread a furious disunity across America. The mob that you deplore for rampaging into your inner sanctum of power and privilege is of your own making. They're your angry political chickens coming home to roost. It's a scream and a disgrace to see not only McConnell but also self-aggrandizing icks like Ted Cruz now posing as righteous statesmen. Cruz unctuously proclaimed, "We must come together and put this anger and division behind us." This is Jim Hightower saying, so let's also shine the light of justice on the mob of insider elites who so selfishly continue desecrating American democracy.
If you'd like more of Jim Hightower's real populism, check out the Hightower Lowdown. Jim's monthly newsletter gives you the real lowdown on which corporations, by name, are doing what to the middle class, our environment, and our democracy. Each month, the Hightower Lowdown brings you facts you didn't know, along with actions you can take to fight back. It also comes with a sense of humor. Hightower believes we can fight the gods and still have fun. Plus, get this, it's cheap. Only $15 brings you 12 issues a year. For real populism, go to hightowerlowdown.org.
Before a person becomes president, is he required to swear a specific oath on a Bible? I'm Bill Newman, and this is the Civil Liberties Minute. The Constitution requires a person who is about to become president to take this oath. I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States and will to the best of my ability preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. The oath is secular. It is consistent with the founders' belief embodied in the First Amendment of a wall of separation between church and state, and is consistent as well with the no religious test provision in the Constitution. That says no religious test shall ever be required as a qualification to any office or public trust. Contrary to public belief, the presidential oath of office does not end with the words, "So help me God." And there's no requirement that the president place his hand on a Bible or any other religious book. And although the historical record is not absolutely clear, some presidents, most likely, have taken the oath without a Bible. John Quincy Adams, for example, wrote in his diary that when he took the oath of office in 1825, he swore on a, quote, volume of laws. All that having been said, nothing in the Constitution prohibits the president to be from taking the oath with his hand on a Bible or adding the words, "So help me God." So, in this instance, as with many others, the Constitution allows the individual to follow his conscience, to make an individual choice. The Civil Liberties Minute is made possible by the ACLU, because freedom can't protect itself.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1937. That was the day the Flint Women's Emergency Brigades were founded. Genora Johnson, a socialist, was a main leader of the Women's Auxiliary No. 10 throughout the strike. A different kind of auxiliary, it built the leadership skills of women through classes in labor history and public speaking. It also set up a first aid station and child care center, raised strike funds, and walked the picket lines. The Women's Auxiliary was transformed through its actions at the Battle of Bull Run when the women put their bodies between the strikers and the police. According to Janet Hazzett, the women moved beyond supporting the strike to participating in it. 50 women signed up the next day. By the end of the strike, over 300 women had joined. The women adopted an official uniform of red berets and red armbands. They were armed with clubs to smash factory windows when police gassed the sit-downers. Their participation in the strike was heroic, and their work continued after the victory. They sought to represent the interests of women auto workers, who often found co-workers less than welcoming and experienced sexual harassment and occupational discrimination at the hands of supervision. Many women auto workers formed the core leadership of several chapters. Historian Nancy Gabin notes that this was not always the appropriate arena for advocacy, saying, quote, by encouraging women workers to participate in the auxiliaries, the UAW abdicated its responsibility to these workers. However, Johnson emphasized it was a radical change to give women a right to participate in discussions with their husbands, with other union members, with other women, to express their views. That was a radical change for those women at that time.
Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Smothered Benedict Wednesdays on this inauguration day. We always begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River. In the Rogue River Valley of southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 24 degrees Fahrenheit, and that's darn cold. And it's going to be cooler than it was yesterday because we're going to only be about 50 or so. A mix of clouds and sun today, winds light and variable. A few clouds overnight with lows in the upper 20s to low 30s. Winds will remain light and variable and will remain so tomorrow, where we will have sunshine and clouds mixed with a high near 50. And it looks like we will have snow flurries coming up on Friday, so we'll look for that. And then next week, a mix of rain and snow throughout the day and night for the rest of the week. But we'll see how that will remain or change. Confirmed cases of coronavirus in Jackson County in the southern part of Oregon have been updated and now stand at 6,970, almost 70,000, or 7,000, I'm sorry. And the deceased have increased from 82 to 85. And I would also add, once again, those are gross undercounts. Pollen is rated as none right here in Rogue River proper. The air quality index for the region is good at 24 parts per million. And the daytime UV index is low at 2. Barometric pressure is holding steady at 30.19 inches. Visibility is up to 8 miles, and relative humidity is at 88%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. We're probably going to have to retire the P-tape part of this broadcast here in the weather because it's a new era. But 4 years of doing it, it's hard to give up the muscle memory. Anyway, London currently is 50 degrees with rain. Paris is 54 and sunny. Rome is 54 and partly cloudy. Kyiv is 12 degrees and mostly cloudy. Kabul is 38 with its winter smoke. Hong Kong is 60 and partly cloudy. Tokyo is 38 degrees and fair. Sydney, Australia is 63 degrees and fair. San Francisco, California is 48 and sunny. And New York is 37 degrees Fahrenheit and sunny. And that is weather brought to you by people's personal weather stations. And these people, they're a crowdsource. And so they put these weather stations somewhere on their property and they live around the world. I apologize, but I am not going to attempt to pronounce this reporter's last name because it has about 24 letters in it. But it is by Chalita E. from the Associated Press. And that is our first amuse-bouche here in the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. A court in Thailand yesterday, Tuesday, sentenced a former civil servant to a record prison term of 43 years and 6 months for breaching the country's strict law on insulting or defaming the monarchy. The Bangkok Criminal Court found the woman guilty on 29 counts of violating the country's lèse-majesté law for posting audio clips to Facebook and YouTube with comments deemed critical of the monarchy. The court initially announced her sentence as 87 years, but reduced it by half because she pleaded guilty to the offenses and they were exercising mercy. Really, were they, huh? The sentence, which comes amid an ongoing protest movement that has seen unprecedented public criticism of the monarchy, was swiftly condemned by rights groups. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres believes it is very important that people be allowed to express their right to speak freely. Violating Thailand's lèse-majesté law, known widely as Article 112, is punishable by 3 to 15 years imprisonment per count. The law is controversial not only because it has been used to punish things as simple as liking a post on Facebook, but also because anyone, not just royals or authorities, can lodge a complaint that can tie up the person accused in legal proceedings for years. During Thailand's last 15 years of political unrest, the law has frequently been used as a political weapon as well as in personal vendettas. Actual public criticism of the monarchy, however, had until recently been extremely rare.
Je te donne c'est mon amour pour la vie entière, la promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle, c'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer, mes automnes quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers.
Mugamotsi Magome of the Associated Press brings us this final amuse-bouche here at the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. South Africa's trailblazing black food writer Dorah Sitole's latest cookbook was widely hailed in December as a moving chronicle of her journey from humble township cook to famous, well-traveled author. The country's new black celebrity chefs lined up to praise her as a mentor who encouraged them to succeed by highlighting what they knew best, tasty African food. Now they are mourning Sitole's death this month from COVID-19. She was 65. In 40 years of iconic food, Sitole engagingly described how she quietly battled South Africa's racist apartheid system to find appreciation and a market for African cuisine. Her book became a holiday bestseller, purchased by blacks and whites alike. Sitole's career started in 1980 at the height of the apartheid, when she was hired by a canned foods company to promote sales of their products by giving cooking classes in black townships. She found that she loved the work. In 1987, Sitole became the country's first black food writer when she was appointed food editor for True Love, one of the few publications for the country's black majority. The magazine and its competitor Drum were known for giving black writers, photographers, and editors the freedom to write about the black condition and experience. Well, rest in peace, grand lady. I have your cookbooks. That brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day, but you do know Netroots Radio will broadcast on, and we're going to meet up tomorrow for Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks. And we'll meet up here tomorrow, right here, in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appétit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théâtres, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. À fleurs, sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver.